Welcome to MTG Ectoplasm, your home for spirit, tribal, and Magic the Gathering. I'm your host, Dwight, aka DeBlanco, a medium that wears an extra, extra large. You can reach out to me on Twitter at MTG Ectoplasm, or you can email me at mtgectoplasm@gmail.com. Let me know how am I doing. Am I doing a good job, a bad job, or maybe I shouldn't quit my day job? Now, like I ask each and every single episode, do me a favor, hit that follow, like, subscribe button. I don't know where it is on the streaming service you're using. Could be in the upper right hand corner, lower left hand. It's important. There's a thing called algorithms, and if you don't do it, it doesn't get shared with other people. So, speaking of sharing, share this episode with your friends and family because this is a very, very solid episode that I don't want you to miss, and I don't think you want others to miss as well. So, I want to bring in the young lady who does the background. She does the little doodads and doohickeys. The only thing I do is try to look handsome for you. Uh, she's the one who came up with this little logo right here and did everything else for me. So let me bring in the one, the only, the individual I call the ravishing one, the
Hello.
ravishing Renata. How you doing there, ravishing?
Hello.
You,
I'm doing okay.
you got a little ahead of yourself, but that's okay. You're excited for today's episode, aren't you?
Yes, it's going to be a good one.
You know, we've had this young man on several times, right?
Yes.
And he's given us some straight up great knowledge, great insight. Like I couldn't ask anything more from a wonderful guest.
Nope.
So we're going to be talking specifically, for those who don't know, you probably hit that thumbnail. We're going to be talking about modern. Um, you have any thoughts on modern at the moment?
No.
Okay, well, there you go. She has no thoughts on modern. And I don't blame her because, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, let's be honest and sincere with one another. Pioneer is the cat's meow right now because of the RCQs. And the reason why I had to bring on this guest is because the fact that, you know what, spirits right now in modern could be in a better place. Now, honestly and realistically, is it a tier 1 deck? Well, Dr. Katz and I, the young man who I'm bringing onto the show, will be discussing these and furthermore. So let me bring in the young man who's sitting there kicking names, taking ass, making his opponents say boo sheet. The one, the only, the incomparable, Dr. Katz. How you doing there, Dr. Katz?
Hey, Dwight, I am doing pretty well today. The only thing is, it is 81 degrees here in New York, and fortunately, my computer's in the top room in my house, so it's kind of hot up here. But otherwise, I'm doing good.
Yeah, normally we would have you here visually on the screen, but today, because you're in a remote location where you're having access issues, I'm glad I still can have you on. For those who don't
Absolutely,
know,
yeah.
they can find you on Twitter at Dr. Katz11. You can reach out to that young man there, or you can find him at Jupiter Games in Binghamton, New York.
Correct.
Hey, how you doing?
Absolutely.
So, Dr. Katz, it's been a while. It's been almost 3 to 4 months since I had you on the show, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we were discussing, 2021 was the year of spirits. Everything was going our way. We had tons and tons of spirits that did nothing for us. Yay!
Yeah, yes, I remember
And now we're
that.
coming to 2022 where there's a deficit of spirits, except for Kamigawa that got released that did nothing for us. Yay!
Correct. Yep.
So, we're still waiting for that 1 minute. For me, I'm waiting for Peekaboo to finally make its appearance. If Watsy's listening, and you better be watching, listening, especially you, Morrow, because I know you probably listen to that teaser tomorrow. But I'm hoping for some good things. So I guess let's get into the thick of things, right? Because I think you and I are basically in agreement. Modern spirits, I think spirits is in a very, very good position. Unfortunately, it's not in the top 10, which people consider their tier 1 list.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
what do you think of the spirits that currently in the current meta?
Yeah, honestly, Joy, that's what I'm here to talk about today. Because everybody knows the spirits as a deck in Pioneer. Watsy knows spirits as a deck in Pioneer. They're printed
not just one. There's three.
There's 3 now, yeah, and each of them has their role.
Yep.
Mono blue counters big mana and control, and really good against mono green devotion. Recently, we've seen Bant Spirits performing better because performs better against decks like removal heavy decks like Rakdos midrange. Is it Phoenix
Mhm.
can catch up with Collected Company? But yeah, I mean, I don't want to go too deep into Pioneer because that's not what I'm
Right.
here to talk about.
No, 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 no. I hear you.
But but the point is that people know Spirits is a strong deck in Pioneer. People kind of doubt its viability in Modern. And what I'm here to say is Spirits isn't, I'm not here to say Spirits is the best deck in Modern or like, but I was thinking about how I would describe it, and I would say it's a rogue deck, but it's a sleeper pick.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is it has actually pretty good game against the top 10 Modern decks right now. If you're playing
Okay.
like a fully upgraded Modern Spirits deck with Ethervile and the like, but you have to play very tight. You have to play very well. You have to sideboard correctly. You have to have a good sideboard. You have to mulligan correctly. There's a lot of tight lines, but I found it rewarding. I've had a few 5-0s recently. My last league was a 4-1. I think before that was another 4-1. So, I've had trouble moving away from Modern when I've been doing well in it. So that's what I'm here to talk about. And I think Spirits deserves respect in Modern,
Mm-hmm.
more respect than it's given. And I'd like some new cards to come out to bolster the archetype, but I'm here to talk about why the deck as it exists now is still pretty damn strong.
Well, you're one of the few people that actually can continue playing the deck, and it proves to be a winner. It doesn't lose. I've actually gone to my LGS, just free for all. And let me just tell you, it just wins. It doesn't, there are moments where there are bad matchups. I don't care
Sure.
what deck you play, there's always going to be bad matchups. But in the current meta, I don't care what anybody says. This deck, to me, I think we can beat that, 50% of the decks out there. No ands or buts about it. The other 50%, honestly, they're going to be tough matchups. And I think there are other key cards in the past or in our toolbox, shall I say, old spells that we've used in the past that we need to bring in to make that deck more viable. Now, at the same time, this is the time as an individual where you need to sharpen your skills. Uh, I want to believe, I'm under the impression that a lot of pressure can make you into a diamond player. So
Mm,
the question is, how much pressure are you willing to put on yourself to take on the challenge of spirits? Learn the deck,
exactly.
be innovative, be creative, find the lines, those intricacy lines that you were talking about, and
hmm
seek and get the victory.
And let's think about this, okay? And that's this. What this podcast is for in my mind today is two things, two purposes, kind of like what I want to talk about. One is why Spirits is a good choice in Modern, or at least
Mhm.
a solid, respectable choice. And for Pioneer players who look at Modern and are like, hey, that format looks kind of neat. It probably wouldn't be that expensive to upgrade your deck. Vial's really cheap right now.
15
All the
bucks a
core,
pop.
if you have the Spirits from Pioneer, you've got like 70% of the deck built. The sideboard's pretty inexpensive. There are some pricey cards like Force of Negation, Fetch Lands, but you can even kind of budget your way without that in the
Mhm.
beginning and build into it later. And you'll have a solid deck that you can go to a local game store, even an RCQ. And if you play tight enough and you're lucky, you might hit top 8,
Mhm.
or even win. So that's what I'm here to talk about.
No, I hear you. It's like you bring up a good point. Right now, fetch lands, I mean, yeah, they're pretty pricey. I mean, I'm assuming between 35 to 45 bucks,
Yep.
each one. So you need a four of that. That's like a buck 25 to buck 30 right there. Then
Yep.
you're talking about, Aether vials, $15 a pop right now. So that's
hmm
another $60. So that's almost $200 right there investment. And then I would have to say Cavern of Souls. You need, it's a moral imperative
Yeah.
to get the Cavern of
I
Souls.
it that's tough. Like Cavern, yeah, it's really good, and I'm not
Yeah,
gonna
but
lie,
it fits
it is
everything in the
important.
modern.
It's important when the top deck in Modern is a deck that has 4 counterspell, but you can get by without it reasonably
Right.
and still do well if you want to be
Mhm.
budget. But yeah, if you're playing at the highest level, yeah, you need Cavern.
Well, I mean, you've already invested enough in spirits. What, I know people are on a budget, but I mean, what's another 250? You know what I
It's
mean? Like,
it's
I hate
funny
to say it
because
that way.
I just ordered a playset of the new Ethervile and the foil apparitions and the new Kira. I I
Foil
just bought
apparitions, out of curiosity.
the
What's that?
foil. There's a, I don't know if you've seen it. There's a foil apparition art. It's a alternate. It's beautiful. It's like a woman ghostly figure with like a little pickaxe, and she's like on a mountain.
Oh, you're talking about Skyclave Apparition, the
Yes.
promo. I already got the playset of that. I already got the full
Yeah,
playset.
I just picked up myself a playset of those. I got the secret lair queller. I've got the new vials. So I'm all blinged out. I'm excited to go
Well,
to my LGS
the
this
ones I'm
week.
desperately to get my hands on is the new alternative arts, well, the full art foil Skyclave Apparitions. No, Selfless Spirits
Oh, I
from
want those so
Justine
bad.
Jones.
Oh, I want those so badly.
Dude, I don't know if you know, I bid it on her artwork to try to win it and hang it in my house. I lost by $50.
Damn, that's so close too.
Yeah, I'm so
You know,
upset.
it's funny because I was listening to some other people talk about it, and they were like, "Yeah, the first promo was like Nykthos, that's sick, but like Selfless Spirit, wow, it's such a dumb weak card." And it's like, oh, come on now, like,
Fine. No. Yes, keep on thinking that, because you'll put that on eBay, and guess whose little dumbass is going to buy it? This guy.
me too.
I
Yeah,
don't- Fine, as long as it doesn't go over $100. That's how that's my budget right now. If it doesn't go over $100,
100 for a playset or individually? Are you saying?
well,
I'm not gonna buy them individually for $90.
Well,
More power to you.
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm an idiot. My what the wife don't know won't hurt her.
Oh gosh, we'll keep those secrets then.
Well, the worst part is the engineer is my wife, and she's looking at me right now like,
Yep.
You got to say anything, Ravishing? Go ahead. Okay, that means I'm in the doghouse. So guess what? That couch is going to be nice and warm tonight.
There you go.
So let's get into this. Ready? What with our deck, and let's say just the Azorius build, okay? Because you play more. Well, let me ask you, what do you feel more viable right now in the meta, the Bant or the Azorius? For me, I say the Azorius.
Yeah, I think both are okay choices. I had a recent 5-0 with Bant, I think a little bit less than a month ago. I almost never play Bant, but I was like, I feel like casting Collected Company today. I'm probably should have just played Pioneer, but I got a 5-0, and Bant's fine, but the problem with Bant are really just two things. One is I don't want to cast Coco often when there's so many counter spells in Modern. That does make it pretty hard to resolve as a 4-mana spell. And the other thing is, in Bant, you're relying more on mana dorks, and that opens you up to Fury. Which, like, if you play something like turn 1, Noble Hierarch, turn 2, like Wanderer, and like Shell Guys or something, you can just be blown out. And I don't like to put myself in those situations, so like I prefer to play Azorius because you can play a more flash tempo game with Vile, and it's a little easier to play around those Furies.
Exactly. So let me ask you, because of that reason, what decks I'm going to say the top tier 1. What are good matchups and why?
Absolutely. So last night, I kind of looked at the top 10 decks on MTG Goldfish, which you're most likely to see at an RCQ, a big tournament, or even a league, if people are trying to spike the league and play more popular decks. And I would say Spirits is favored or slightly favored against probably 4 out of the top 10 decks. So like you have 4 of those matchups that you'd want to see, that you're like in a decent position against. You have a few that are unfavored and a few that are even. So we'll start with the favored matchups in the top 10. So is it Murktide, most popular deck in Modern right now? Very strong, powerful, force to be reckoned with deck. I actually believe it's slightly favored. If the Isn't Murktide player is incredibly good and knows the Spirit matchups incredibly well, I would say it's even. But one thing you need to remember about playing a rogue deck is that I've played against Isn't Murktide probably about 50 to 60 times. Maybe more than that since MH2 was printed. How many times do you think Murktide's played against Spirits? Probably
a lot.
Nah, I don't think so.
Well, for me, because that's all I face in my LGS. It's like,
LGS, yes, that's different. Yes, but I'm saying, like, if you're going to an RCQ or if you're playing a league or if you're entering a challenge, like these bigger events, like Spirits representation is smaller, and if you go to your LGS, you're likely one of the few people, maybe the only person who plays Spirits and not in there. Else, you kind of have a unique LGS. And I say that because like we have a lot of tools to beat Murktide. Burrington Forge Tender is very good in the matchup. If they sideboard in Fury, it counters it. It blocks an early Ragavan. Moreland Haunt is extremely good in the matchup to keep generating tokens and go wide. A lot of people like to pretend like, oh, how does Spirits win against Murktide? They play a bunch of removal and they play Ledger Shredder and Murktide. Those are really big flyers. How do you beat that? And it's like, well, Spirits got tools these past couple of years to beat that stuff, and you got to remember that. And I think people oftentimes forget Skyclave Apparition was printed prior to MH2, and it doesn't really see much play anymore, but it's not like the card is magically not good anymore. Like you
Well,
Skyclave Apparition Ledger Shredder, and that sucks for them.
exactly. Like you tell me, okay, how modern. Just stop being, a 2-3 mana, format. It's
Oh,
still
yeah.
consistently 2-3 mana. Once in a while, you'll have like, what's that? Murktide Regent. Okay, fine.
Yep.
We can't get it with Skyclave Apparition or
Nope.
Skyclave Apparition or Spell Queller.
Yep.
Okay, that means we have to find a different mode to get to it.
Correct. And there's a lot of ways to do that. And that's what, like right now I play a very stock, you can go a lot of different directions. I play 60 cards, 4 Other Vial, the Strong Spirits, some personal choices, like I dropped the 4th Apparition for Akira. I have a solid sideboard, but like if you're facing Murktide, just a tiny little bit of advice. If you're a new player and you're into Modern, you're facing Murktide and you're like, how do I approach this matchup? What do I do? The first thing I would think about is if you have a Shacklegeist, save that card for as long as possible. Don't play it into a counter spell. Don't play it into removal. Make sure when you cast it, you have a Rattle Chains up to protect it. Make sure there's a Selfless to protect it. Make sure you have Queller. Make sure Drogskill's coming out with it. Because Shacklegeist will win you the game against Murktide if it's protected about 80 to 90% of the time. And it's because when you get to their end step and you play a Shacklegeist late in the game or you flash it in, whatever, you tap their board and they're oftentimes dead the next turn or the following turn. And they don't really have a way to deal with that, especially if it's protected. So Murktide's actually a slightly favored, or maybe even if they play their cards right, very, very tightly.
See, well, for me personally, in my LGS, I actually moved out my Shacklegeist. I ended up putting in Solitudes with Essence Flux, and that's what's getting me the victories.
That's interesting. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. There's other approaches. You can pitch Solitude. The issue with that, the reason I generally don't prefer is like then your opponent gains 7 life, and I'm like, oh, now this game's gonna go long. But
Yeah, I hear you.
maybe you don't mind. Maybe you think, all right, I'll win the long game because I've just solituded like 2 of your creatures. That's pretty powerful, especially with an Essence
stupid
Flux.
monkey, and now I got a 3/4/4/4. I forget what it is that stays onto the battlefield, and it has lifelink.
Yeah, it's very strong. Yeah, and is it Murktide? So that's one of the matchups you want to see, and that is the most popular deck in Modern. And in my last 10 matches against it, I'd say I won 7 out of 10. So
nice.
It's not an impossible matchup if you sequence well. The other decks I would say are favored in the top 10 are Burn, which you have.
That's always easy to be.
It's really not that hard because you have Queller, you have Wander, which put in a lot of work. You got Supreme Fam to block the early threats. You have sideboard cards like Force and Negation.
You got the Rattle Chains. You got the Kira in the deck. Yes. Yeah.
You've got a lot of ways.
I'm never worried about Burn. Once I see Burn, I'm like, oh, victory.
And if you're running like Burrington Forge Tender or a Core Firewalker, Sanctifying Vec on the sideboard, it becomes extremely easy. So it's not a matchup you want to worry about. It's a matchup you're happy to see.
Right.
And the other two, which are interesting, and good Spirits players know these are good matchups, but Living End and Footfalls, any Cascade deck is going to be a good matchup for Spirits because we play Mausoleum Wander, we play Spell Queller, which both deal with their Cascade spells. We have access to Remorseful Cleric from the side, Force and Negation. We have BFT for Fury. We have Selfless for Fury. We have an answer for almost everything those decks throw at us. So can we lose? Yeah, but you got to play smart and know how to mulligan. Like if I'm playing against Living End and my opening hand's Vial, Sailor, a few Lords, I'm mulliganing that hand even if it looks good because I need Queller or Wander to guarantee they don't combo
Mhm.
off.
I hear you. Now, one that I didn't hear from you, and you have to forgive me because I looked at the last tier 1 last week.
Sure.
Now, Golgari Yawgmoth. I didn't hear you talk about that one.
Yeah.
To me, I
that-
think that's a beatable deck, hands
I do.
down.
I do too. I wouldn't say that one is necessarily favored in my experience. I would put it as an even because we
Okay.
have cards like Queller and Subtlety alongside Force and Negation for stuff like Corticaling or Eldritch Evolution.
But then you have the side, you do have the sideboard. Either you're putting Remorse for Cleric, or if not, Rest in Peace.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
that's why I'm
it's a
like,
pretty solid matchup because it's a combo deck.
exactly.
And
I mean, if we can squeak out game 1, and we can put in the sideboard game 2, game 3 is victory for us. No ands, ifs, or buts about it.
absolutely. And so I would say Yawgmoth is even, and the other even matchups would be Grixis Shadow.
Mhm.
And 4-color, which is interesting.
Ooh, really, money pile.
And I'll tell you why I think that.
Yeah, I am very interested. That's one I would actually put a bad matchup. I'm actually. Please enlighten me.
Sure. I was thinking a lot about that matchup last night, and like kind of the way that I say Murktide's maybe even or slightly favored. I would say 4-colors even or slightly unfavored, but not by a lot. And the reason why, and I think this is what people forget about spirits. Like they're like, oh, a tribal deck's never going to stand a chance against 4-color. Like they play Fury and Solitude and Endurance and
Mhm.
all these removal spells. There's just you can't chew through that. But it's like you got to remember, out of every tribe in the game that can handle removal, spirits is the best at it. So
Protect our own.
exactly. So if you sequence very well and you play tight, you can win that matchup. Like I'll give you an example. Like you lead with a vial, you pass, you put in a wander. They try to kill it. You're holding up Rattle Chain, so you don't let them do that. You untap, you play Akira. Now vial's on 2. If they try to kill wander in response to Kira, you flash in Rattle Chains. If they don't, well, now they have to deal with Kira. So, and if they're using like 2 Solitudes or 2 Furies to deal with Akira, and then you flash in a Rattle Chains, they lost. That's it.
Mm.
It's over. Like when you have enough layers of protection in your deck, you can get to a point where in the early game, if they're a little clunky and they're just like, all right, I got a Fury. And then you're just like, oh, well, here's my Selfless Spirit with Vial, surprise. Or they're like,
Amen.
got a Fury. And you're like, oh, I got a BFT here. And they miss that window. Sometimes you can crack them back with a lot of damage. Maybe you quell an Omnath, maybe you
Mhm.
Apparition and Endurance, and then it's just game over. So it's a weird matchup because you have turnouts where like you don't stand a chance,
Mhm.
like if you're not drawing your Selfless, your Rattle Chains, your Drogskull, your Kira, your Protection Spirits, they kind of just kill everything you do and you die.
Right.
But when you do draw those protection cards and you have Lords, it gets hard for them because you're
Mhm.
killing them fast and you're blanking their removal, and they have to find an answer quick, and they kind of have to waste their elementals early or risk wasting. And if they don't waste them, then you can just slam a couple words and kill them. So it's a very intricate matchup. One of the keys I'd say with that matchup is, and this is hard, but try to keep Ren and 6 off the table
Mhm.
because it will ping your small spirits. It'll make sure they never miss a land drop. And one of the ways we beat that deck is something like Force Negation on a Ren 6 or a Spell Pierce or something, and then they miss their 3rd land drop, and now we have an advantage.
Yeah, because
So,
Ren 6 is just.
oh, it's a beating.
I like
So,
there's certain cards that I want banned.
oh, don't get me
That-
started. That's my number
Like-
one request in
like,
Modern right now.
For me, it's Ragavan. I don't like monkeys. I was bitten by a monkey when I was a young lad.
I remember you
and
saying that.
I'm not a fan of monkeys, hands down. But Red and 6, no. I mean, if you're a creature, if you have to add a number to your name in real, in a card game, no, I don't like it.
That's fair enough.
No, that's not taken away from Dr. Katz 11 on Twitter. You can reach him. Okay,
It's a little different.
That's a whole different story. That's him trying to.
I promise you the original Dr. Katz was taken.
Okay, so there you go. So you can reach Dr. Katz, at Dr. Katz 11 on Twitter, and you can find him at Jupiter Games in Binghamton, New York.
So yeah, I look at that though, and I say that because I was having a little debate with someone, and I'm not trying to put him on blast. I was having a debate with someone the other day on Reddit about like living in. They're saying Spirit's really bad versus living in. It has no game. Living in just runs you over, and I was saying like, no,
No.
like not the thing. The thing you got to think about with Modern is these top decks are geared to beat each other. Okay, so like living in plays force and negation, right? Because they're just like, oh, you're going to try to counterspell my living in. I'm going to force that. I gotcha. I gotcha as a Murktide. You're not going to counter my living in. But it's like Spirits. Spirits is like, well, I'm just going to quell your spell. And they're like, oh, wait, I can't force that. That's a creature. And if they're like, well, all right, I'll subtlety it. And it's like, all right, well, I'll subtlety your subtlety. Or
Wow.
it's like we have these, or there's so many scenarios. We could play remorse. You have Violon too. You can't subtlety a remorseful cleric. I put in with Violon too, because I'm not casting it. I'm just putting it in with my other vial. So you pretty much can't do anything.
That's why we have Cavernous Souls. That's why we have Aether Vials. Come at me, bro. Come at me,
Exactly.
sis.
Yep.
Just come at me. All right. Let's step outside. You know what I mean? They're like, no matter what, whatever you think you can do, I have an answer. That's what I love about Spirits. We protect our
Me
own
too.
and we have answers.
Exactly. And I say that because living in's the type of the way the deck functions is like they usually grief you. But when you've got 4 Mausoleum Wanders, 4 Spell Callers, 2 Force and Negation, Remorseful Cleric, sometimes Chalice, it's like, all right, you get to take like one of those like 12 things I can do to stop your combo. And it's like, now you have to deal with another one. So in order for living in to beat us, we either have to draw extremely poorly or mulligan extremely poorly, or they get very lucky. It's got to be like grief into another grief into a force or something. And like, that's hard to do. So, and same for Footfalls. Footfalls has Fury. Footfalls has red burn spells. But again, we have a lot of layers protection to play around that. We can play slow. Like one of the things that helped me evolve as a Spirits player in Modern, a difference between it and Pioneer for someone new to the format is like, especially with Azorius, get used to playing a little bit slower. Like if you play a threat and your opponent doesn't kill it, but they have mana up, don't flash in the rattle chains. Just be patient. Like save that rattle chains.
The problem is people don't realize rattle chains can be a wonderful present early game because you can flash in creatures. But there's times when you have your creature, it can be that cherry on top, meaning that you're attacking, you're doing this. Fine. There's nothing wrong with picking your opponent 1 to 2 life each turn. Nothing wrong with it. It's going to piss them off. And next thing you know, they're going to go, I got to nail this creature because it's just pecking me too much. And then you go, rattle chains.
Exactly.
And darn you for getting my rattle chains.
And it gets easier, with Vile because, like, yeah, if there's a Mausoleum one attacking every turn, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. But once you play a Supreme Phantom with Cavernous Souls that your Izzet Murktide opponent can't counter with their counter spell, and you're attacking them with Wander, they start to feel like, okay, I kind of have to do something about this. And if they don't kill that Mausoleum Wander, you untap, you take up Vile to 3. All right, here's a Drog Skull. Now they're all 3 attacking you. You're still going to not use removal? Like, you put your opponent in these situations where you put a lot of pressure on them. And in order to do that with Spirits, you have to sequence your cards really well. You have to know when to cast your Apparitions, when to cast your Drog Skulls, when to hold back, when to flash in that Rattle Chains end of turn to give everything flash, just like you said.
Now, I'm going to say something that may be controversial. This
Sure.
is a hot take. Are you ready for it?
I'm ready.
Look, here's my hot take.
I'm ready.
And I hope you're excited. I hope the listening and viewing audience is excited and jovial because I want you to see me. I want you to look in my eyes when I tell you this hot take. Ready? Say if you have 1 spirit on the battlefield, right? And it's just say, listen, 2/2, 2/1 flyer, right? This is the hot take. It takes 10 turns to beat them.
Correct.
That's it. 10 turns to beat them.
Yep.
You do that 10 times, they're going to be pissed.
Yep.
That's my hot take.
And you got to remember
leave it. It doesn't get any more brilliant than that. If you protect that one creature 10 times in a row on your opponent's turn, victory.
Yep. And truthfully, Yeah.
I know the other part is
Exactly.
like, most people are like crickets. Nope. That's harps. I don't care.
Rattle Chains, yeah, Rattle Chains is still a good Magic card in 2022, and a lot of times you don't even need to protect a creature that long because as you're protecting your creature, you're developing other creatures because your protection spells are creatures like
Mhm.
Rattle Chains and Drossel Captain. So finally, they're like fighting through the removal, like, all right, I'll kill this thing, and it's like, yeah, it doesn't really matter at this point, I'll just bring it back with Moreland Hun, you're dead.
When
So,
go ahead.
so I bring this up just because out of the top 10 decks, I think there are some favored matchups. I think there's some even. But admittedly, there are unfavored too, and we can get into that in a minute.
Okay. Well, I was gonna say what's unfavored.
So, unfavored for spirits has always been big mana. It's funny. I was trying to look for some answers to Tron. It is in the top 10 in modern. It's the last deck in the top 10. Thank God. That's good for
Mhm.
spirits. But it's it's a deck where I was looking back at like Bant Spirits when it was like the top deck in modern 2018, and someone was saying, "I can't beat Spirits. It's so strong. It's so oppressive. They draw lock me. How do I beat them?" And the top comment on the thread was like, "Play Tron," and it was like, just play Tron. Like Tron's
They're
good
not
against
wrong.
Spirits,
The,
and
the the toughest hands that match up spirits will always have are two major decks. And thank God one of them is like semi dead, but it's starting to make that revival, which is Amulet Titan.
yes, and that was
Number
the other
one,
one I
and
was
then
going
number
to get
two is
into.
Tron.
Yep, Amulet Titan and Tron are hard because our cards like Queller and Apparition don't line up well against them. They're
Well,
often
because we
playing
play our deck fair. We play your fair deck.
yes, and we're oftentimes trying to, they're casting, especially now with the consistency Titan has, and they're casting their Titans turn 2, turn 3, and it puts us in a situation where we're unfavored. We have tools. We have subtlety now, which is
Well,
great.
that's great because this is the question I wanted to ask you for because we're like at that weird 1 2. They say we're 2. I say we're 1 point, not even 1.5. We're 1.25. What cards can we do to move it up a list? Move it up a tier.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I brought up my recent deck list that I got a 4-1 with. I could have brought up one of the 5-0s, but I made some slight changes since then. My main deck's pretty stock. I play 35 spirits. I play 4 other wild, 21 lands. I play 3 apparitions instead of 4.
Okay.
Um, it's very good against stuff like Shredder. It's still good against Shadow. It's okay against DRC, stuff like that. But I play 3 because there are certain matchups like Living End, Cascade, where you don't want to see Apparition, Control, like matchups where they don't really play enough threats where you want to see it. And I play Kira as my 4th card because Kira's very good against Fury,
I did the same
Solitude,
thing. I hate to
Unholy
tell you.
Heat, Bolt. Did you really?
I went 3 Skyclave, one Kira now.
And it just has felt
Fits
right
better.
for a very long time. So I think Kira is well positioned. In terms of sideboard, what cards can we look at in the past that can, you know, hedge up these matchups? Like, well, this isn't an old card, but subtlety. Subtlety's great versus Titan. We can still play
Mhm.
other guys if we want to, but subtlety is nice. It's good against Tron. It's good against Titan. Sometimes bouncing that Titan or putting that Ugin on top of their deck is enough to say, "I play a Lord, you're dead."
That's good
So
against Arctide Regent.
it is. It is. And what's funny? I don't bring it in against Murktide. Um,
Why not?
which
If
which
they're gonna delve,
oh,
fine,
it's
delve.
so good.
Boop.
Yeah, it's so
Put it on top of
good.
your library or put it on the bottom because guess what? Now that you took everything out of your graveyard, hold on. Where is it? There you go. Go ahead, my friend. Try to play it again.
Yeah, subtlety is very good against specifically Murktide. But I guess the reason I don't play in that matchup, and that might even be wrong, I gotta test it more, but is because like I don't want them to be playing a Murktide on like turn 2 or 3, and I'm subtletying and I'm losing 2 cards, and like sure they don't have a Murktide now, but sometimes that matchup can be about card advantage where like we're both kind of getting
Yeah.
towards the 8 game and they're trying to get their iterations on making tokens, so like it's a little. But if you're casting salty for 4 against a Murktide and they're casting it later in the game, oh my god, it's amazing. It'll just crush them.
Well,
So
that's like
it's a
see,
respectable choice.
See, so that's why I keep on bringing up my card that I love is Essence Flux. This is for those who don't know, it's just like Ephemerate, but for blue. And the only difference is it doesn't rebound. The difference
Yes.
is it bounces a creature like it. How would it
Flickers,
blinks a
flickers.
creature,
Yep.
but then if it's a spirit, it gets +1/+1. So how is that a negative? Oh, they're trying to target my creature. I have rattle chains on the battlefield. Oh, I will freaking essence flux my rattle chains, blink it, protect my creature, and then my rattle chains becomes a 3/2. How this is a card that nobody's talking about in the spirit community, and it blows my mind. Like, this is just me, and you tell me if I'm wrong, Dr. Katz. Sometimes when poison is used against you, sometimes it's good to use the same poison against others. You know what I mean?
Fight fire with
Fight,
fire.
fight fire with fire. So, what is the one for me? The toughest matchup that I've seen currently in the current meta is Money Pile. Since Money Pile likes to sit there and use their elements against us, elementals against us, why don't we use and incorporate some of those into us using Essence Flux instead of the Ephemerate? Bing, bing, bing. Guess what? Now we're taking advantage, making our money pile beat their money pile.
It's like we're getting a better tribal payoff because we're getting the
Amen.
plus one
Bravo.
counters as opposed to, it's debatable. To kind of answer your question, you're like, tell me if I'm wrong. You're not wrong. I honestly don't know if you're right
I'm
or
okay
wrong.
if you call me wrong. I welcome it.
Yeah, and no, I would tell you, but I, Nikachu's working on Merfolk right now, and I'm sure you've seen he's been working on an ephemerate list that's Azorius colors, where you can ephemerate his Master of Waves, his tricksters and stuff to get extra value. And there's an advantage and disadvantage to playing that type of deck. The advantage is that when you have those creatures out and you use the ephemerates or the essence flux and it works, and you do blink like a rattle chains to get someone who gets a +1, or let's say they're like, all right, I'm going to Fury your Draw Skull because everything else is hexproof, and then you blink the Draw Skull. That's pretty backbreaking. If they don't have another way to deal with that. It's a protection spell. It gives a +1 counter, and I very much like the synergy, like
Spell
you said.
Queller.
You could do
Skyclave
tricks.
Apparition. I mean,
It's interesting. Spirits are weird though. Like there's certain really good situations. Like Apparition would be really good, right? But like Queller, it's like, yeah. Like sometimes Essence Flux would be good with Queller, but other times it's like, eh. But the one advantage you can do with Queller is you could do that to exile their spell forever, so they never get it back.
Here's a fun one that you brought up before: Shacklegeist. Oh, I have a Shacklegeist. I tap it, Essence Flux. I blink it. It comes onto the battlefield now with a +1/+1 counter. Now it's a 3/3, and I tap it again.
Yep,
2
and it's
spirits
untapped,
in
so
1.
now I can tap. Yep, so you could attack with it and then use it with one other spirit to tap something on your opponent's turn. Yeah, there's tricks. So that's the advantage, I would say, of playing Essence Flux or Ephemerate. You get access to all these tricks when you have these creatures out. But the disadvantage would be this: if you're getting low on resources and like someone verdicts you, or you get your board hit, or sometimes what could happen is like you could have a hand where it's like you have a vial, you have a spectral sailor, and you got like 3 essence flux, and you're just like, oh, like I hope I draw more creatures.
But see that this goes back to the general problem with spirits in general that I desperately wants you to fix. There is no card draw for spirits. I don't care if I can loot. Let me loot.
Yep.
But there is zero card draw for spirits, and it is the bane to the existence of that deck.
Yes, the biggest weakness I think of spirits, like in modern and maybe even in Pioneer, but although Pioneer has Coco, which changes things.
Right.
But of Azorius spirits, or of Azorius spirits, let's say, because Mono Blue has Curious Obsession, Bant has Coco. It doesn't really have card advantage. So a lot of times you could say, like, well, why would I play Azorius when I can play Bant and get 2 spirits, or play like Curious Obsession? Well, the advantage of Azorius is like, and this is why I'm hesitant on the Essence Flux thing, the deck is just all creatures. You don't have Coco, you don't have Curious Obsession, you don't have counter spells. So what happens in a game with Azorius spirits is you're more likely to just keep drawing creatures and creatures and creatures. And you don't get into situations where like you're drawing a Curious Obsession on an empty board, or you're drawing an Essence Flux on an empty board, or you're drawing a Coco and you have 3 mana and they just killed your Hierarch. So it's more consistent.
Right.
But but the cost of that is the power is not as high, and as a result, you got to play super, super, super tight. Like if
Right.
you got a Shacklegeist, you don't have the Essence Flux, so like you better play it next to a Selfless or a Kira or a Drog Skull or with a Rattle Chains, because you can't have that Geist die, because that's going to tap the Murktide and win you the game.
The only reason why I bring it up is because we're because of the resources. I want to use the resources as much as I can. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I'm a nurse. Okay, I did I did a double shift last night. Worked 16 straight hours in a dementia ward unit. Okay,
Whew.
I want my spirits to be as nutty as I am. That's why I'm like today. If you like people, you're watching the show, you're seeing me more wacky. I'm basically extremely like my brain's bride. My brain is fried.
Yeah, no, we know it is now, right? Brain's
So
fried.
with that being said, I
Yep.
want the same for my spirits. I
Mhm.
want them to do double duty. And that's
Sure.
why to me it occurred to me, I was like, Essence Flux. And I get a +1/+1 counter?
Yeah, and like to kind of answer your question more, like key cards, Essence Flux, Ephemerate, that'd be one direction to take the deck in. You can go build full into that, like was D-Star did that with
Mhm.
Urian and Solitude and Subtlety, and I've seen humans do it. I've seen them play Urian, and they're playing stuff now like what's the card that brings back a creature from the graveyard? Extraction Specialist. So
Mm.
like I think I think tribal decks have gotten certain tools like Apparition and Shacklegeist and Extraction Specialists and Adeline, Resplendent, Cathar, and I think humans and spirits are still very strong and modern and powerful if people can leverage the tribal synergies and the abilities of the individual creatures correctly.
Mhm.
But you have to play very, very tight, and you have to make sure you play around cards like Fury, which is not that hard to do when you have Other Vile, because you can flash most stuff in to get around sorcery speed, and then you can play a Lord, and then it's like, oh, well, Fury's not good anymore. So
Alright.
those are the kind of things you have to have in your mind when you're playing. But in terms of key cards, we have access to a lot of good sideboard cards. I mentioned Subtlety. Force and Negation is another good one. Cards from the past. I've talked about this before, but Burrington Forge Tender, very
Mhm.
good. I don't even play removal for Ragavan. I never will, and I kid you not, because I just play a Burrington Forge against any deck that plays Ragavan, and most of them can't do anything about it.
Mm.
Like Murktide has zero answers to Burrington Forge besides engineered explosives. And if
That's valid.
they're using that on Burrington Forge Tender, they might be killing a Ragavan or a DSC of their own, because they play a lot of 1-drops. So BFT is very good, and then it's also an answer to Fury against 4-color, against rhinos, stuff like that. And then the other one that I love to talk about, and me and you both love this card, I think, is Kataki.
Yep.
Um,
Mr. Wars Wage.
yes, and someone's playing Affinity, you
Or
just play
Mrs. I
Kataki.
don't know. I don't know.
If someone's playing Affinity and you play Kataki, they lose. That's it. That's that
Mhm.
simple. And if someone's playing Hammer Time, well, now they have to start paying the taxes, which is going to make it a little harder for them.
At first I thought you were gonna say 3 fairy.
Teferi is interesting. I've played with Teferi, and I think it is very good, but I think it's very good against Cascade, and
Mhm.
I felt that Spirits is already very strong against Cascade with Queller, Wander, Force, BFT, Remorseful Cleric, so I haven't really
Because
played
when you mentioned
Teferi.
Cascade, I was like, 3 fairy. There you go. Beep, beep. Shut that person up. 1, 2, 3.
And if you're hoping to spike a tournament with Spirits in Modern, really what you want to do is go to tournament and face Cascade all day, for the most part. Or is it Murktide?
All right. Well, let me ask you the next question I have here, because Spirits is not played too much in Spirits. I mean, in Modern. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is causing that? Do you think the fact that people are underestimating the deck? Do you think people need to be actually who play Spirits need to be educated about the lines, or do they need to be educated in the keys to victory, like trying to figure, I mean, there's certain lines and there's certain ways to attack. You know what I mean?
I would
You
say
understand where I'm going there?
I do, and I would say yes, yes, and yes, and yes. Like, and more or less, I think the reason Spirits doesn't see play much in Modern anymore is because Pioneer exists. You know, Spirits used to be a deck that people would love to play in Modern, and like even when it wasn't well positioned, you know, even when Titan and Tron were very popular, um, people will play Spirits because like, oh, it's a cool tribal deck. I can just play my other Gus or whatever. Same with Humans, but with the introduction of Pioneer and then MH2 with all these cards that admittedly make it harder for tribal decks. You got Prismatic Ending for a while. You got Fury if you don't play around it. You have Solitude sometimes when you're going for a lethal attack. And people just say, oh, well, here I am looking at Pioneer. Like, Spirits is doing really well over here. It's one of the top 10 decks. Like, Humans doing really well here. They're playing Coco. Like, I used to play Humans in Modern. I'll just play Pioneer. So that's something that I think tends to happen. I don't think it's bad. You know, I think Pioneer is a good format, but I wish people would experiment a little more with Tribal and Modern because I think it has legs and can perform better than people think.
See,
It's
because
some of
that brings me to my next point or next question in a sense where the fact that, where is Spirits right now? Is it relegated to, back to history like merfolk and goblins? I mean, where is this deck? And me personally, it's a better than, no disrespect to Nikachu. He's my boy, right? From Winnipeg, Manitoba. He's
Yeah,
my,
yeah.
my mentor, my senpai, my sensei, right?
Mhm.
No, I'm not besmirching him. So if anybody tries to go back there and say, "The putting this is a caveat," I'm not besmirching him. But we got to be honest and sincere with one another. Spirits is overly better deck than Merfolk and Goblins, and I don't care what Jim Davis has to say. Okay,
Uh,
okay, I'll
I'll
call
just
him. I'll
I
call
play.
him out because he's not
I'm
my
pleading the
mentor.
fifth. I'm gonna plead the fifth here.
Oh, you can plead the fifth. I don't care. Like, look, he's a nice guy. I met him in Philadelphia.
Sure.
Nice guy. Not trying to besmirch him either. But
Mhm.
Spirits is highly better than Goblins, and I don't care what he has to say about it. We protect our own, and we interact. Goblins are just little dummy little rugrat wannabe monkeys that
I hate
can't figure how
goblins.
to screw in a light bulb.
Yep.
Like,
You know,
so
I
my
for,
question is Spirits relegated to the history, to the dregs of history like those two decks?
I'm actually gonna answer this question in a different way. I might challenge you a little bit on this. So
Ooh.
I I think Merfolk and Goblins aren't dead decks. I would say Merfolk, Goblins, Humans, Spirits,
Mhm.
Elves. I'd have to think more about, but
Mm.
even Elves, I might argue. I'd say all these decks have game, and what people aren't really trying to do experiment with as much as like, how do we beat these cards? You know, like for example, Merfolk, they're like, all right, I'll Fury you. Well, I have Subtlety. So they run 4 subtleties in their deck, and they have a lot of card advantage with Silvergill Adept and Sylveon of Sea and Sky when it's attacking. They have kind of some protection with the ward thing and the indestructible now. But yeah, Merfolk doesn't have the protection the Spirits have, but what it does have is better card advantage engines, and
I agree.
it also has
Nikachu.
well,
Someone
yeah,
who
there's
actually constantly innovates and does stuff
yes.
to improve the deck. I'll say same thing with Goblins. If it wasn't for Jim Davis, Goblins would be a nothing deck.
But you know what? That's what's interesting. Goblins, you know what that has? Goblin doesn't have any way to protect their creatures, but goblins can just draw 50 cards with
Mhm.
their matron, goblin matron, or
Yeah.
all they make a million tokens. So like, yeah, Fury would still suck for goblins, but if they play around it and they play slow, they could just be like, all right, you Fury me, here's goblin matron, here's 3 more goblins. All right, I got a
Right.
combo, you're dead. So all the decks, all the tribal decks have tools, I think, to beat this stuff. And you got to remember, Vile, and this is something I want to kind of hyper focus on, but any deck that plays Other Vile is a card that sees legacy play. Still
Mhm.
does. So that says something, like you can't subtlety something under another Vile. You can't counterspell something with another Vile.
Mhm.
And that's strong.
It
Like,
has flash too.
yeah, and it has flash. And people will say stuff like, oh, well, Prismatic Ending. Murktide isn't playing Prismatic Ending, you know? Neither is Living End. Neither is
Mm-mm.
Crushgade. Like,
Mm-mm.
what decks play Living End? Okay, 4-color.
Control.
Control. And here's a funny thing. Control is not in the top 10. And
Mm-mm.
the other funny thing, I have a funny story about Control I'll share real quick.
Okay.
So when Mime H2 came out, Control got Solitude, they got Prismatic Ending, and then they got March later. So it's like, and at one time they were playing Spreading Seas for Urza's Saga.
Mhm.
So when I was first playing against Control after MH2 was printed, I lost, and I was just like, damn, they have all the answers now. They got an answer to Vial, they got an answer to Cavern, they got this and that. It sucks. But as I started to get out of that mindset and think, all right, let's just see how well I can play around this stuff. I had a game, where they solituded me twice, verdict me, played Prismatic Ending on my Vial, Prismatic Ending one of my draw skulls, and I beat them easily.
Wow. Okay.
And the reason why is because spirits have so many tools against Control. We can play at flash speed. We can put in a selfless for verdict. We have Queller if they try to play a big planeswalker or a verdict. Even Solitude, we can play slow, and just every time they want a Solitude, it's like you're risking going into a rattle chains. So we have subtlety for Solitude. Like we have Merlin Haunt. We have so many tools
Exactly.
against some of these decks, and I think people don't really look at that. Like against Control, against Living End, against Footfalls, we're usually
Burn.
not going to lose. Or against Burn, yeah, against Burn. We're
Just me, I
usually
get
not
so
gonna-
excited when I see a Control player or a Burn player. I'm like,
Oh my God. How many times in my life I've queued up a league and I've been like, you know what? I'm playing a lot of Spirits. Spirits is more of a Pioneer deck. I'm going to play Affinity. Affinity is a powerful modern deck. I got my Thought Monitors. I got my Urza Saga. I got my Shadow Spear because that's one of my secondary decks I play. I queue up and I face Zurius Control in the first round. I'm like, fuck, I should be playing Spirits, And
Mhm.
um, same thing happens with Living Ends. Same thing happens with Footfalls. These linear Glimpse of Tomorrow, creativity combo, these linear combo decks like Spirits poses them. It really does.
Well, let me ask you the next question. Ready? If
Sure.
a new player is coming into Spirits and Modern, what advice would you give them?
General advice would be, like I said before, play patient, play slow. If you're not interested in Azorius and you don't want to kind of play that tempo slow game, you could play Bant, but you have to be careful of Fury and Counterspell. You could do what you're saying. You could play Essence Flux and try to get value. You could do Ephemerate like Nikachu. You could play Urian if you want to try Urian with Solitude and Subtlety and Ephemerate. There's a lot of room to explore. So find what appeals to you, pick that, and stick with it. And my best advice would be to practice, practice, practice. If you play leagues, play leagues. If you go to FNM, go to FNM. If there's a local RCQ, go to it.
Or do it all.
Or do it
Do it
all.
all.
Do it all. That's what I want to do. And honestly, I'm going to keep doing it all until I get a top 8 or I win an RCQ and people look
I
over and
believe
say,
in you.
whoa,
You'll
what
get
the
it.
hell's going on? How did spirits do this? Just some random pilot doesn't mean anything. That's what they'll say, but it doesn't matter. Like that's my goal. I think it's fun. Is it the best deck in Modern? No. Is it strong enough to compete? Yes. That's what I'm here to
Yes,
say.
definitely so. I mean, if Merfolk is out there competing, Goblins is out there competing, there's no
And
excuse.
spirits can, yes.
There's no excuse.
And
I mean,
that's
and the best part
exactly.
is that you have, this is not me trying to toot my own horn. And if I had a horn here to toot, I'd start doing it. You have content makers that are out there for these particular decks. Why are there content makers for these particular decks? Because they're actually good and they believe in them. Jim Davis,
Exactly.
he's a pro tour player. Yeah, he plays all this other stuff, but he's a goblin guy. You have
Yep.
Nikachu. He's a merfolk guy, even though he knows all of Modern. I know a lot of Modern.
Hmm.
I'm a spirit guy. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So, and you got, and I don't want to forget my friend Andre Segura, the Spirit Master. Then you got Renf in Brazil.
Yep.
The Brazilian Spirit Master. You have people out here that are making content, and why? Because we believe in the content, and it's pretty funny that you have 2 in English and 1 in Portuguese. Well,
Yeah.
technically, I'm English, Spanish. Then we have English and then Portuguese. So
Yeah.
we're covering the gamut here.
Exactly. And what I wanted to add to that is Spirits is a deck that really, really rewards tight play. And if you listen to Andrea Mangucci, he put out a video recently. It was like top 15 decks in Modern. And then it was either in the beginning or the end of his video, he gave a disclaimer like, if your deck's not in this top 15, don't get discouraged. Modern's a format that rewards very tight play. If you play very, very tight with your deck and you know it in and out, you can have success. And people have always believed that in Modern. I think they don't anymore with MH2, and I think it's still true. So,
well, that leads me to my next question, because how do I phrase it? Did Modern Horizons 1 and 2 kill the advantage that Spirits had in the meta before? Because we were against what was that? Blue.
there was Heliod. There was Is It Prowess?
No, there was another one. There was a deck before Modern Horizons even took off. It was a blue
before
green
Modern
creature.
Horizons 1?
It was a blue green creature. It was a Titan. Uro. We had an 80% winning average in Modern. Modern, not against that deck, in Modern, and we kicked that Uro's ass left and right. Like, people were playing that deck left and right, and we were smacking it. We're making it's like, who's your daddy? Who's your mommy? Who's your your parent? we are your parent. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like,
well, but even back then,
did Modern Horizons 1 and 2 take away the advantage that Spirits had?
So I'd say, in some ways, kinda, but in other ways, no. So like,
okay,
Queller's in some ways, Queller's a lot worse, right? Because like most removal spells in the game were 1 or 2 mana, and then people play sweepers that are 3 or 4 mana pre MH2, which is stuff like Verdict, Fatal Push, Lightning Bolt, Hat to Exile, which people really didn't even play much before MH2, but whatever, So, Queller's not as good in that sense because these elementals, unfortunately, almost all of them cost 5 mana, and Queller can't quell a 5-mana spell, which sucks. But that said, what people don't realize is a large portion of the meta outside of the elementals is also Cascade, and Queller's very good against any Cascade spell, because if it quells a Rhino or a Living End, and then you got the protection to protect Queller so they're not getting that spell back, that's tough. That's tough for them, and they can't force Queller either. So Queller's kind of better in some ways, worse in others. But then a lot of these other spirits, like Selfless Spirit, I wasn't really playing Selfless Spirit pre MH2. Now that Fury exists, I'm playing 4. It's
really that many. I've gone the opposite. Like, I'm staying at 2.
And that's reasonable too. Selfless is good versus Fury, obviously. If you have Selfless and a couple spirits out, it's good. And I don't know why people kind of, I guess in your language, like poo-poo Selfless and just think he's not good. It's like, it's an answer to Fury, right? Like,
no poo-pooing Selfless.
Yeah, like you play it, and then you have stuff like you can flash in with Rattle Chains, you can flash in with Vial. So people are like, I'm gonna Fury your board. You don't have anything. It's like, oh no, I do actually. And I guess the weakness of Selfless would be its 1 toughness, and there are situations where that comes up and it's tough, but it's honestly the best Selfless has been in a while when people are trying to play Fury. So I think it's good. I think Unsettled Mariner would be another respectable choice. But yeah, I think MH1 and MH2 definitely hurt spirits in certain ways. I don't think I'd be being honest with the listeners or myself if I didn't say that. Like Prismatic Ending and Vial, yeah, it sucks.
Right.
Like sometimes you face and control, you have a 1-lander and you're like, Island Vial, they Prismatic Ending, and you're like, ugh, that sucks. But you know what? What people don't understand is sometimes you draw Cavern of Souls the next turn, and you're just like, okay, I'll just
like, cha-ching!
like, yeah, I'll just hold up this Rattle Chains and pass the turn, and then I'll flash in a Cavern, and now I'm back in the driver's seat. Now you're in trouble control. So people over kind of, what's the word I'm looking for, I guess, with MH1 and MH2, did it kind of kill the advantage Spirits has? It killed some of the advantages, I guess, but the deck's still strong enough to compete. And these cards, like when you get your Vial Prismatic Ending, sometimes you lose the game. Sometimes it doesn't even matter. So
if you think about it honestly, can we look at the top tier decks out there? You got Izzet Murktide, Modern Horizons 2.
Yep.
You have Burn. It's always been out there. Then you got the Landfall decks. Well, if it wasn't for Charlotte's Agent being reprinted, it wouldn't even exist. Then you got a Money Pile, Modern Horizons 2.
Yep.
Then you have Golgari, Yawgmoth,
Yep.
the Modern Horizons 1. I mean, a lot of these decks, these tier decks, are all because of Modern Horizons 1 and 2.
Correct.
Now, as a Spirit player, yes, 2021 was the year of the Spirit. We got bombarded with spirits that did absolutely nothing for our deck. And that's what annoyed the hell out of me. Because the fact that we got so much, we were blessed. We had the cornucopia
I know.
of blessings, and we received none.
Here's a funny,
I mean, I hate to
funny
look
little
that-
fact. When Innistrad came out, like the two sets, what were they? Midnight Hunt and Crimson Vow, back to back. I was looking at the spoilers every single day.
Amen, brother.
I was
Amen.
so excited. And when like Illuminator came out, I was so excited. Like the few cards we did get, and then after the sets like came and went, and we didn't really get anything in Modern, and we got a little bit in Pioneer, but like one card that did come from those sets, it's very good for Pioneer. And one of the Discord mods, Riff, corrected me on this because I was thinking, oh, Spirit's got nothing. He was like, what about Geistlight Snare? I was like, yeah, that card's really good.
That's great. It's great in Pioneer.
It's great. It's great in Pioneer, yeah. Yep. And in terms of exploring an extra space, there is a space I want to explore in Modern that I think you'd be excited about because you like the idea. I get the sense of like brewing and innovating and coming up with new ideas. And
I come up with some stupid like I'm so old school. Okay, like I said, tell everybody I started right before Mercadian Mask. Okay, so you're talking like 1999. Okay, before Y2K. If you're young and go, what the hell's Y2K? It was the end of the world. Okay. I used to take stupid decks and just figure ways around it. For example, Oris. There's a card called Oris. It had a Grand Door. You discard the card. You have Oris on the battlefield. Discard the Oris card. It gives you the Grand Door effect, which means your opponent can't cast spells and can't attack.
Oh my god!
So what I ended up doing in my infinite wisdom is I took Survival of the Fittest and another card called Genesis through the the Genesis in the graveyard, so I can get my second Oris. So in Genesis allows me to return cards from my graveyard back to my hand. So guess what? On my opponent's turn, if I had the Oris in play, I'd pitch the Oris on the opponent's upkeep. Guess what? Now they can't play spells and they cannot attack.
And you do it again.
Oops. And then on my upkeep, guess what? I draw the card and I'm pinging them every turn 1. So it took 20 turns to beat my opponent. But guess what? They're not casting spells or attacking.
Oh my god.
Okay. This is a stupid deck that I thought way back in the day. And I'm thinking about, oh man, I love it. To this day,
funny?
like if you talk to my friends, I have a cleric deck. An unbeatable to this day, has not been beaten. I pulled that deck out, and people like Master Apothecary. What the hell? When did Master Apothecary came out? I guarantee you've never heard of Master Apothecary.
No, and I want to say something about that. It's funny because like that sounds almost like a commander combo. Like to me, like no one can cast spells or attack me anymore. You all lose slowly. That's like, and as soon as you said that, I'm just like, yeah, you're a Spirits player. Like that's what we like to do. Us blue players, we like to just like make people miserable and just and that's kind of, I mean, really, that's what blue and white is, right? Like no one likes facing Zuri's control, and when people see spirits, they're like, oh, it's spirits. That's not control. Thank God. But it's like, like as a kind of final example, I'll give you about like
before you go, I got to give the name of the deck. I call the deck No.
Oh,
that's the name of the deck. No. You're gonna attack? No. You're gonna play a spell? No.
That sounds like a match made in heaven. That sounds glorious.
And then I had Grand Arbiter, so they couldn't play spells on my turn either.
Oh, that's brutal. Yeah, I've thought about building into like just I don't really play Commander hardly at all, but so
I do the deck list. You're gonna be like, what
yeah, you should. But I thought about building like a Zur enchantment block, like Staxy, like
I have it. I
my opponent's miserable. Yeah, you can just send it to me.
Yeah, I built that with Ghost Prison and all this other stuff. Oh yeah,
Very nice. Very nice.
I'm the one player in your life where you go, what an a-hole.
It's
Okay,
fun to be that player. It's not fun to play against that player.
no.
Absolutely.
So let me ask you the next question. Now, before I ask this question, you can reach Dr. Katz at Dr. Katz 11 on Twitter, and you can also find him at Jupiter Games in Binghamton, New York. All right. So if you're out there in Binghamton, New York, and you go, hey, I want to see Dr. Katz, I want to see how he plays, let me check out this handsome fella. There you go.
Thank
And
you
now,
for the
mind you, he's
compliment.
also the moderator on the Spirits Discord. So if you're on the if you haven't joined the Spirits Discord, it's a moral imperative. What are you doing? And you'll see him there.
Yep, and pretty easy to find. You could either just type in MTG Spirits on Reddit. It's linked right in the description.
And you need to join the Facebook group. You need to join the Spirits Facebook group.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, I do. I don't think I'm a member of that.
Well, it's a moral imperative. You need to join the Pioneer, even though you're sort of staying
I'm a
away from
modern
Pioneer.
guy. Yeah,
But there's
yeah.
a
I'll play
Pioneer,
a little
Spirits Pioneer, and a Modern Pioneer.
Ooh, that's nice.
You need
Yeah,
to join that group.
and if you're having trouble finding the Discord, you could just find me on Twitter, shoot me a DM or something, and I'll send it to you, or just at me.
There you go.
I'm one of four moderators too. I want to include the others. Or that
Now,
they
mind you,
might be
out of the
upset.
thousands and thousands around the world, one of four.
Yes, one of four moderators. Yep.
Now,
So
let me ask. Okay,
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, let me ask you my question. I love saying this now. Should the Boo Crew? I love that name, Boo Crew. My wife's the one who thought of it. The Boo Crew, aka Spear players, start leading toward other color combinations instead of just sticking with the typical Azorius and Bant. Should we start leaning, for example, toward Demir? Is it Boros or Orzhov? The only reason why I'm asking this is a friend of the show reached out to me and went, you know what, Dwight? There's an amazing deck list, Demir, that should check out. I looked at it and I was like, it has Feel Push. Oh, it has this. It has that. Ooh, it has a little bit of deliciousness to it. It has a little flavor. It has a little bit of seasoning. It has a little bit of sazon or saffron or
which you love.
yeah. Dude, you have no clue. I love spice, and it has that extra touch of, as the French would say, a little bit of that je ne sais quoi, a little bit of I don't know what. What is your thought? Should the Boo Crew, should the Spirit players start leaning into other colors?
So yeah, one quick question about that, Tamiro. So they playing Hateful Eidolon, the enchantment creature spirit. That's like, I wondered. Send me that list. That sounds interesting.
I think it is running a Hateful Eidolon.
Yeah, because there's been. I remember Dre a while back was brewing something in Pioneer that was like Hateful Eidolon with Curious Obsession. And like I think that card when it dies, you draw for how many equipment like auras I had it and some. So there's some interesting synergies there. Yeah, no, I think that's a choice. I think if you want to play modern and you're interested, like I talked about, you could go Urian build. You could play Bant, you could play Azorius. And in terms of other colors, I never really tend to experiment much outside of Azorius. I don't really play Demir or Izzet and stuff. Or Just Sky. We just recently on the Discord created a kind of a new little subcategory of Modern and Pioneer where we talk about less common builds of spirits. So like in Modern, be anything except Azorius or Bant. So right now they're talking about Just Sky. And in Pioneer, we started 1-2, and I think they were maybe talking about Izzet. So for me,
well, Just Guy, they've been wanting to just do Just Guy for a long time. Friends of the show, Tuesday Tastic, based out of Utah, who I'm friends with. He's a patriotic fella. He wants the red, white, and blue spirits. Desperate.
I've joked with him about it. I've told him like, yeah, play Just Guy. I've just told him. I've said, yeah, you do that. Like I'm not going to experiment with that. I don't want to do that. But because I'm boring and I just play my regular Azorius. Like, but hey, sometimes I think, well, I'm 5-0 and I'm 4-1 and I'm 5-0 and like I'm doing well in F&M. Why do I, if it's not broken, don't change it. Sometimes I can be that way. But that said, there is one thing I want to try in Modern that really interests me, that kind of sparked me recently. Mono Blue. And
I've been thinking about that a while.
I want to try it because you get the 4 force and negation, you get the 4 subtlety with extreme consistency. So that's your interaction because you don't have Queller.
There's a 3-mana Lord, Patrician Geist.
Yes, and you get stuff like I would probably build it similar to Pioneer. It'd probably be something like Wonder, maybe Sailor. I'm not sure about the Snow one or if it'd be Snow or not, but you would definitely play Curious Obsession. You'd play, um, you could play Counterspell. Yeah. So so instead of Geist Light Snare, you have Counterspell, and you could maybe you could play Geist Light Snare because it's actually not bad in Modern if you have a Spirit with Curious
You know what'd
Obsession.
be fun too? Phantasmal Image.
Yeah, that would be interesting. There's another Spirits player playing Azorius in Modern who's
I'm,
been having
I'm
a
just,
lot of
I'm
success with that.
just saying, Phantasmal Image. It's a 2-mana card. Yeah, it does die, but if you have a counter spell or other thing, bravo.
Exactly. So
Uh,
I think like if you
no
were playing something like
bullshit.
Mono Blue in Modern, you'd probably never lose against Crashing Footfalls or Living End, like ever, because you would have Counterspell, Wander, Subtlety,
The
Force.
tough decks I would have to say is it Murktide and then Burn. Burn would be a tough matchup then.
Yeah, it's funny because I brewed up a Mono Blue list. I was all excited about it. I built it. I've
Look at me getting all excited.
I've discarded it now, but I might build it again. I'll tell you what happened. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna take this through a league yet, but let me just like jam some 2-player queues, turn practice. We'll see how it goes. I face Burn. I'm like, oh, okay, Burn. I have a bunch of counter magic. This shouldn't be hard. They play Eidolon, and I'm like, huh, okay. And then I just realized, wait a minute, like I'm dead. I have no way to deal with this. Whereas like with Azorius, I have Vial, so I don't have to take the damage, or I have Apparition. And it kind of hit me. I was like, "Oh, okay. I need something to deal with Eidolon." Yeah, I know.
You need bouncies.
I do. I would probably need to play more Petty Thefts or the Force Subtlety to make sure that card doesn't.
Or there's a fun
stick.
one that Pioneer uses. It's a Witness Protection.
Oh yeah. I played that card against my brother, and he was laughing so hard because I played it on his Soul Scar Mage. I'm like, your Soul Scar Mage is now a legitimate business person. He's no longer like
a one green citizen.
Yep. He's no longer some like, guy that's out in the woods, not wearing a shirt, like breathing fire like he was. He's civilized now. Like
Murktide Regent. Hey, now you're just a 1/1 human citizen.
Yep, and turned you into yeah, people were making jokes about it in the Discord. Like, can you imagine Ulamog saying like you turn him into a legitimate business person? Ulamog's like, so much work to do. Got to get into the office today with a suit on.
There's an old school movie with Chris Farley, like a fat guy in a little coat. Basically, that's Ulamog in a citizen's ensemble.
Absolutely. But yeah, no, there's definitely room to explore. But what I am here to say though is you can go into other colors, you can brew, you can explore. I'm not usually one who does that unless it's going to be like mono blue. I just really like the colors blue and white.
I hear you.
But what I will say is, even as it stands now, 60 card Azorius like stock list is good enough. It's good enough to compete in Modern. If you want to go further and use Essence Flexor, Urian, or Ephemerate and experiment and try things, you might even stumble upon something even stronger. So
exactly. I like, my thing is, if you're a brewer, go out there, do it. You 5-0, I'll bring you on the show just so you can talk about that brew.
Sure.
Like, I'm not starved for content. There's tons and tons of content that I can make for Spirits. But to me, nothing is more mystical and magical that brings a wonderful tear to my eye when somebody comes up with something different, like D-Star did with Urion.
Yes.
That was out of the ballpark. Nobody saw it. Nobody. Like when Nikachu, my friend, my mentor, was like, this and that, Urion? And I brought it to his attention, and he was like, what?
And what's interesting? What frustrates me sometimes.
It was a good interview. He was a solid interview. I enjoyed interviewing him.
I watched that one. Yeah, I watched all the way through. And what I wanted to say, and I remember I tried the Urian at that time, and I was just like, I can't do this. I'm going back to my regular build.
Dr. Katz, you there?
Oh, sorry, I almost disconnected there.
He's trying to end the show early, ladies and gentlemen. He has to leave at a certain specific time. We reached that time limit, but he's trying to hurry up, get out of here.
See ya. No. But I remember I went back to like my regular build just because, and not that that build's bad. It's just that I'm not used to it. And people will say stuff like, "Oh, well, D-Star made top 8 in a challenge, but like it was a one-time thing. Like, why hasn't he made it since?" It's like, all right, how many challenges do you think he's played in since? I don't know.
Mm.
Like, challenges are a time commitment. You know, that's
Mhm.
it's like 5-6 hours on a Saturday or a Sunday, and if you're not in the right time zone, you gotta do mental gymnastics with your sleep, which me and you were used to already because of our jobs. But the thing is, you know, like, don't dismiss that stuff as much. Like, if we had, think about it this way: how many people you think go to a tournament and play Isn't Tide? Like, how many people you think register for like maybe a 200-person tournament?
Realistically, 25. 25 to about 40 people.
I'd say maybe even more.
Really?
Yeah, I'd say. Well, maybe you're right. I was gonna say 50, but that's 1 in 4 people playing Tide. That's a lot.
Because you like what happens is, and this is not besmirching anyone that is this, but that you have a lot of people who net deck and they're like,
Mhm.
I'm just taking with the top deck. I don't even need to play it. It's the
Yep.
top deck. It's gonna win, right? Then you get the other people like, I want to beat the top deck. So, that's what I play against.
Yep.
And then there are people like other, like I'm going to be the contrarian where I try to beat against the top decks. Then
Yes.
you have people like me who are a master of their deck, or
Exactly.
I hate to call myself a master. Let me just call myself a elite specialist. Okay,
Yes. Yep.
because I don't like me. I'm too humble to call myself a master. So I'm an elite specialist in my deck that looks at the disadvantages that I have in the game and try to make them my strengths.
Yes. Exactly. And when you go to a tournament, you know, and you have 30, 40 people playing Isn't Tide, you're going to get a conversion rate where some of those 40 players are going to get in the top 8.
Hmm.
Even if I would argue, obviously, you know, some of those Tide players are going to be people like, Tide's the best deck. I just want to play it. And they're not very good with it. But then you're going to have other people who have done 1,000 games and are very good with the deck and really enjoy the deck. And those are going to be the harder Tide opponents. The other ones will be easier. But if you had 40 people or 25 or 30 people playing Azorius Spirits at every single event, just like Tide, I believe we would see Azorius Spirits in top 8 often.
No, I'd agree there.
But
I 100% agree. I
but
guarantee, like, out of 200 people, you may have 5
if that.
just playing spirits. It doesn't
Yep.
matter what brand of spirits.
Yep.
Spirits.
Yep. And like I said, there's reasons for that. Most Spirits players are playing Pioneer because it's easier to do well in
And I hope
Pioneer.
they're listening to the show. They better.
And
Be
I hope they
listening
are too, but that doesn't mean yeah, probably not. Probably like, oh, it's a modern episode.
Hey,
Skip this
hey,
one.
hey there.
It doesn't matter for me. No, but that's what I want to do. I want to get the Pioneer players who are looking at the deck that are new to the game, who say, "Hey, Modern looks cool. It doesn't cost me much to upgrade. Let me try that." Because
Right.
what's going to happen down the line, I believe, and it's just my personal belief, but like I was bummed out we didn't get any good spirits in Innistrad. But if WotC printed a Pioneer Challenger deck for Azorius Spirits, that means they consider spirits to be a mainstay or a like default for that format, which means they want spirits to exist in Pioneer, obviously, right?
Why
And
would
if
they
they
not
want
try to print something for it?
exactly, and if they want spirits to exist in Pioneer, and they want the format to continue to grow, and as it evolves, new cards are going to come out. Cards are going to get more powerful, which means Spirits has to get new tools to keep up. And WotC will, in my opinion, print those tools for Spirits to keep up in Pioneer
Well,
because they want that to happen. And the question
well,
becomes,
okay.
yeah, sorry, you go ahead. I'm
No,
dragging on a
go
little
ahead
bit.
because you're making a solid point here.
Yeah, so the final point is like, when we get those new spirits eventually, it's going to come down to this. Are they in like a Pioneer Horizon type of set where like they're only legal in Pioneer and you can't play them in Modern? That would be very unfortunate. But, or is it like, well, Pioneer's not Modern, so all Pioneer Horizon cards can be played in Modern, or they
That
just
would be
release them through
wonderful.
standard sets. And either way, all it takes, like, and I believe this, if you printed another Mausoleum Wander, this is simple. Peekaboo aside, Peekaboo sounds great.
No,
I would love
peekaboo.
Peekaboo
No,
too.
peekaboo's a moral imperative. Damn it, WotC, peekaboo.
What was he again? Enter the battlefield, look at opponent's hand, one man
It's a
out.
1/1. I changed. It could even be legendary. I'm okay with it being
Oh,
legendary now.
Wow.
A 1/1, 1 blue flying spirit. 1/1 blue flying spirit. And when it enters the battlefield, you can look at opponent's hand. Okay. But you get to draw a card.
So it is so it's blue then, not white.
Blue.
Okay.
Blue. Or
That's
if
actually
it
makes
could
it
be
even
the
better.
hybrid, white or blue. I'm okay with that.
Phew.
It's just blue.
Making it blue makes it even better because Spirits has a much easier time casting a blue spell turn one than a white one.
Mhm.
But Cavern helps with that too. I mean peekaboo, or
I just want to peek. All I want, I've always been the type of person, I want to see what's in my opponent's hand.
Mhm.
If I have to worry, let me worry. Let me have that forethought, that foresight.
That would be nice. The card draw would be really nice too, because like you look at opponent's hand, like, all right, they have Fury. I can play around that. I just drew a Selfless.
Exactly.
It's like, yeah, that would be real cool, especially for 1 mana. Especially for 1 mana. But even if they print a Wander, like another Mausoleum Wander, let's say his name is like Cemetery Wander, Graveyard Wander. It's basically like Hedron Crab and Ruin Crab, exactly same thing. Exact same text as Wander, except it says like instead of target opponent controls, it's like each opponent. It's just like the stupid doesn't target thing or something like that. And if they did that, I am convinced Spirits would be tier 1 because Wander is that powerful of a Magic card that if you're playing, like, you would have games where you'd be like Wander, different Wander, all right, Phantom, all right, Wander. Like it would just be absurd.
Well,
the strength of that.
I know you're on time constraints, but this is another hot take, and you don't have to hit the button.
Go ahead.
This is my hot take right now in Modern. In the Spirits deck, Mausoleum Wanderer is the best spirit in the deck.
I would say that's a cold take. That's true. It's always been true.
I would have disagreed with you a year ago.
Interesting.
I would have disagreed with you 100% a year ago. I would have told you Rattle Chains is the best spirit in the deck.
Interesting. Yeah, you could be right.
Because the fact that you come, all your spirits come with flash, and you get to protect a creature, and the fact that it's a 2/1, so that you can smash 10 turns and win. Just saying.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right.
Rattle Chains to me was the best deck last year. This year, Mausoleum Wanderer, hands down, is the best card in Modern Spirits.
It's certainly a beating for Cascade decks. I'll say that much.
Mm-hmm.
And people kind of underrate how innocuous Wander is. When you play Akira and you have Wander out, it's like,
oh Jesus!
Now you gotta like kill the Kira twice, but make sure you have enough to pay the Wander attacks. Like I had a game where I was facing isn't Murktide. To give you an idea how these games go, and I'll kind of end on this note.
Okay.
There's games where, like, granted, this was kind of a nut draw, but it's like Vile, you got Wander, you got Rattle Chains, you got Kira, and my board state by like turn 3 was just like, or turn 4, it was like Drawskull Captain, Kira, Burns and Forge Tender, Wander, Selfless Spirit, Shacklegeist. It's just like, how are you gonna beat this?
You don't.
Like, you don't. Yeah. Like,
I'd be like that meme, that fat guy that flips the table. That would be me.
Yeah, and to kind of wrap up, and this is something I really wanted to share, and I kind of kept forgetting, but there's a good match you can watch. Do you know Corey Baumeister? Are you familiar with him?
Yes, I know. I met him in SEG Philly. My goal is to have him on the show. He said he might be able to come on the show. That's
awesome.
Not saying it's 100%, but I'm trying to get him on.
Sure. Yeah, no, he's I've never met him in person, but I've watched some of his verses live. Very nice guy. Yeah. One of the nicest players. Like I said, I've never met him personally, but just based on his personality, his attitude. My brother had showed me a match where he was playing Grixis Shadow, with Dress Down, with EE, with Ledger Shredder and Ragavan, all those cards. He leads with like he plays like a land and he's got like a Fatal Push, and he's like, the opponent plays like a shocked land. It's like blue-white, and he's like, oh, I really hope this isn't Azorius control. Like, this can be tough if they have like a Chalice and Solitude. And the person plays a Wander, and he's just like, oh, okay, that's not bad. Proceeds to lose 0-2 and get destroyed. And I'm not knocking on Corey. I'm not knocking on Corey because he played very well. He made a couple of tiny mistakes. And he said, like one of his mistakes, I'll give an example, was like he used his spells main phase 1, which caused his DRC to get Delirium, which let it attack.
Right.
But that was bad because since DRC attacked, the Spirits player now can attack without being blocked.
Mhm.
And because of that one mistake, playing your spell main phase 1 and not main phase 2, he lost the match for Spirits.
Mm.
And I bring that up because then in game 2 they proceeded to do something like really stupid. It was like the Spirits player was like Wander, Shacklegeist, Drogskull, Apparition, Kira, and I was like, yeah, okay, Spirits player's got like everything. And he gets to this point in the game where he's like, all right, they've got like a Kira and 2 Drogskulls. I need a EE. It's my only out. If I can draw Engineer Explosive, I can put on 3 and have a chance to maybe come back.
Right.
And then they play Selfless Spirit. And he's like, yep, well, I guess I'm dead then.
See, people undervalue. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're hearing this, this is the truth about spirits. People undervalue the spirits.
Yes.
Oh,
And you know what? And you know something funny about that? That's one of their biggest strengths in Modern because people don't undervalue them in Pioneer. People know Spirits is good in Pioneer. And because people don't respect Spirits in Modern and aren't ready for it, it gives it an edge. People aren't prepared. You know,
exactly.
And I want to drill this point one more time because Corey Baumeister, and you know this, is one of the best players in the world.
Yeah, he's solid, hands down.
Legitimately. Like he's won big tournaments. He's a very good player.
Do I think I could beat him? Yes. But how many times?
Exactly. It would be tough. I could say that. And
I would. Hey Corey, I want to bring you on the show. Let's try it.
You know, I've had games where it's funny because, and again, like people not being familiar with Spirits, I go to my LGS or I'm on my way to like I'm on a league or something, and then people will be like, oh, like all your deck flies, like that's really annoying, like
it's called evasion.
It's a bad matchup for me. Like I haven't faced this deck in years. Like no one plays this anymore. Like you get this salt, you know, like
it's called evasion. Get over it. Yeah. If it wasn't for Spirits, you would have to probably face Angels, which is just another deck
that is
completely undervalued. That nobody knows anything about. And hands down, I've played it. I actually built it for my wife. I hate that deck.
You know what I'm going to say to that?
I hate it.
You said nobody knows about it, nobody plays it. Keep it that way. Make sure your wife's the only one who does it because I don't want to face Angel.
Because Giada, that's what we need. That's what Spirit needs. Give me a Giada.
Ooh, yeah, like a ramp spell like that. That would be neat.
Give me a Giada where I can use it to tap. It's a mana dork, and my creatures get +1/+1.
That would be amazing.
Bingo.
The thing with Spirits is tough.
Makes a happy camper.
You know, like a lot of times I want to say like just print another really good Spirit or like make Spirits better and stuff, but Spirits is a deck that like you actually do need to be more careful with than you think. It can actually easily become tier 0 and take over the game. And well, it's because everything flies, very hard to interact with, and if Spirits gets to a point where they start to play things that are like counter target. Let's say we get like a 2-mana Flash Spirits, like counter target spell with mana value over 4. It's just like, okay. Now, like Titan, Elementals, and Tron don't stand a chance.
Okay, now you have to now I have to redo Peekaboo again. Thanks. Now I got to. Okay, a 1/1. I'll say 1 blue, 1/1 Spirit, Flash, no flying. Look at the opponent's hand, draw a card.
Interesting.
Now, so you had to take away the flying. Thanks, appreciate it.
I need my flying.
I need my flying too. But look, it's on the ground. I get to look at the opponent's hand and draw a card.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a 1/1 creature on the ground. Oh, and then I can Essence Flux it. Just saying.
And then draw another card. Yeah, that would go well in your Essence Flux deck. That's a valid point. You'd ephemerate it, get a +1/+1 counter. Well, no, not ephemerate, but yeah, Essence Flux.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, and overall, like I believe we'll get more Spirits in the future. I think WotC's on it.
Was trash.
What I just hope doesn't happen is that it's not like a Pioneer Horizon set where the cards aren't legal in Modern. And this could also happen. WotC could be like, man, trial decks are struggling since Modern Horizons. Everyone's complaining. Why don't we print like a better Aether Vial or a more humans? Let's print some really busted humans and Spirits and Goblins. But then what could happen is we could go into a Modern meta where it's like all tribal decks. And I mean, I'd be happy, but a lot of people wouldn't be.
Yeah, I hear you.
You know, so we'll have to see what happens over time. But Spirit still has legs. It's strong, whether you play it in Pioneer or Modern. You
It
just have
just
to
needs
play
some
well.
help. It just needs some love.
Yeah.
It needs some cuddle time. That's what it needs.
hmm
So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it from the one, the only, the gentleman who we call Dr. Katz. Dr. Katz, tell him where they can reach you.
Yep. So as you said before, Dr. Katz 11 on Twitter. Yeah, sorry, name escaped me for a second. I guess I'm tired too.
He
I was
forgot his own Twitter.
I was gonna say, wait, Twitch is Discord? No, and Twitter, and you can find me on Twitch and Dr. Katz 11, but on Twitch it's Roman numeral 11, and then Jupiter Games is my local game store of choice.
And he's also one of four for the moderators in the Spirit Discord.
Yes, Dr. Katz 11 there too. Yep.
Group. Okay, and then do me a favor, go find him, play him. 1-on-1 with Spirits versus Spirits over at Jupiter Games. He'd probably definitely appreciate that.
Yeah. I don't know if I want to hate the mirror match, but I'll do it for you.
There you go. Now, so Dr.
you
Katz, thank you for having
go.
you on. Let me just
Yep.
tell you, hands down, I got to do this because we haven't done it, during the show. But I'm asking, please, kindly, everybody, please visit mtgectoplasm.com to get your MTG Ectoplasm merch. We're selling the t-shirts, every color, every size, men and women. You got the MTG Ectoplasm shirt for this show. Then you got the IRL, which is the live show that I do with my friend once in a while, New Dan. And then gameplay, which I do here and there. And then you got this wonderful coffee mug. And don't worry, Boo Crew, the Boo Crew shirt is coming out and the Boo Sheet shirt is coming out. So guess what? You'll have everything all for you for Spirits. So you can take it to your RCG, RCQ, or if you want to play FNM, or hell, while you're just playing regular MTGO or Arena, right here, MTG Ectoplasm merch, because it helps support the show. So, Dr. Katz, let me ask you one last time, anything else before we end the show?
No, I think we'll wrap it up there. But I know you've asked us in the past. One thing me and you could do, but I think you've done a few of them, is the modern like matchup episodes.
Mm-hmm.
That's content that definitely I'm looking to get into. Whether me and you do it together, whether
Yeah, not a problem.
go
Just
over it on
reach out to me.
YouTube or stream.
We can do that on the back end. That's not a problem. We can handle that. But you gave me an idea for an episode. So, D-Star, if you're listening to the show, if you're watching it, I need you to reach out to me. You were going to come on and talk about where you've been, where you have, I know Sweden, my friend, you have the Swedish swimsuit model team out there and the great hockey team. I understand why you may be a little busy and not playing Spirits, but I'd like to have you back on.
Absolutely.
So thank to Dr. Katz for giving me that idea to talk to D-Star.
Perfect.
All right.
Well,
So
thank you.
now next time, ladies and gentlemen, the next time you're kicking your opponent's ass, make sure they say, "That's Boo Sheet."